called to order at 6:01. We have consent agenda items, which include the minutes of the October 4th, 2021 school board meeting, some general fund vouchers and purchasing card transactions. Request approval of general fund vouchers 176434 through 176628 and 291345 through 291402, and purchasing card transactions dated 8/21/21 through 9/20/21. There are also some professional staffing recommendations. I would accept a motion to accept the consent agenda items as presented.
I so move to accept the
Arlen?
consent agenda. Yep.
I have a second.
I second.
Kate? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously, 5-0. We have some professional staffing recommendations, no vote necessary. That would move us to
Public comments.
Public comment.
oh, I'm missing it in here. Okay, public comments. I believe we have two that would like to be
Craig,
heard.
would you be comfortable if I invited those to register online if they would like to?
Yep.
Okay.
Go
At
right
this
ahead.
time, if you'd like to make a public appearance by speaking to the board, please utilize the Q&A portion found at the bottom of your Zoom window. In the Q&A, we would ask that you type your name, address, subject of interest, and whether you have discussed this item prior to the meeting with either a district administrator or President Howery. After submitting the information, I would transfer you over to the speak to the board. Thank you. We'll see if anyone registers.
Okay.
Do we want to start off by reading these?
Sure.
Yep,
You want me to go ahead? Okay,
ahead.
I'll start reading while we wait for other people
sure.
to join. Okay. The first public comment is from Amber Bolt, 4901 Highland Drive. Hello. Just want to say thank you for keeping our kids' best interest and safety first and foremost. With that being said, I'm concerned with the infection rate at CEPS, where my son currently attends. Now, last year, I kept my son home due to COVID numbers, being my father's a lung cancer survivor and currently only has 1/3 of a lung still intact. Now, over the summer, the COVID numbers greatly improved, but as we are seeing firsthand, things are getting worse by city, county, and statewide numbers. It has been brought to my attention that currently at CEPS, in the last week alone, there were 7 positive COVID cases, 4 of which were in the 2nd grade wing. Now, as we see numbers go up and case counts go up within our community, I feel like now is the time to act. I feel like the lunchroom situation needs to be addressed. Granted, now the cases are confined to classrooms, but what happens a month from now? I feel like the cases are going up due to snack time and lunchtime. Who's to say if my son is in the lunchroom, somewhat close to another student that coughs from another classroom, he will not contract COVID? From personal experience, I've had COVID and I don't wish it upon anyone. I think different protocols need to be in place for snack time and or lunch. I want my son in school, as do most people, but at what risk? I think it would be wise to modify the school week so the kids could eat at home versus being unmasked indoors for any period of time and or require for the time being the kids eat outdoors somehow. I don't know. But please hear me out and take this with great consideration. Thank you so much for your time. Amber.
Anything yet, Angie?
No.
Okay, I'll go ahead and read the second. This is from Candace Pennekamp, 6110 Pattison Court. The subject of interest is masking our athletes. Hello, board members and administration. I am writing to you today to ask that you allow our volleyball athletes to play competition without wearing masks. As a board, you approved no masking of our competing athletes prior to the order that was passed down from Dane County. So I'd urge you to fight for this for our athletes now. Quite simply, It's difficult for the girls to breathe during competitions, and I've watched the struggle for too long. It's difficult to communicate with a mask on in a sport that requires a high level of communication. It's a rule that's not consistently being enforced in our own gyms and in other gyms within Dane County. So please just remove the rule here in McFarland. Thank you for your time, Candace Pennekamp. Okay, if we've got nothing else
No one is
on
registered.
board, then I believe that turns it over to you, Dr. Anderson.
Well, the future meeting dates is next Monday. We have another board meeting, and if you are on Berserk meets this Wednesday at 4:30. So we have 2 of the board members on that, and then we have an alternate. So, and one of the big items, of course, will be our discussion on calendar and calendar options on Wednesday. And then, of course, as I said, we have a board meeting next Monday. We also tomorrow have a meeting, the individuals that are on the joint village school board, and that will be tomorrow at 4 o'clock. So those are the meetings coming up in the next week.
Mhm. And let's see. Discussion items. Discuss our strategic planning process to this point.
Yep, so, and basically both these next 2 items go together, is that we've been having listening sessions on both the superintendent search and on strategic planning. And there was another one held tonight, I think it was the last one held tonight. So I've received the minutes from all those meetings. We now are ready to put out a survey to all staff and community members. So, and basically they go with the 8 questions, but if you happen to want any changes, like you want an additional question, you want me to rewrite a question, these are gonna look very similar. One's going out to staff, one's going out to the community. It'll just have a little different header when I get that far. But if there's any changes, I'll make those changes and then send them out tomorrow. And then, once we get the input, I will create a document that basically goes through and summarizes what's happening, what the information provided by everyone was for the board.
Thank you.
So I guess the first thing is to take a look at the surveys and to determine if there are any changes you would like to either one of these surveys. And if there are, I will make those changes, and then Angie and I will send those out tomorrow. There's a, you can see the 8 questions that, basically 9 questions, that you used are the ones that we're sending out to both those. But if you have learned something from the listening sessions that you'd like a modification or change, I'd be happy to make those changes before we send the surveys out.
I kind of like the way they blend. You know, I think it's comfortable doing these surveys at the same time. You know, I think they have enough, the processes have enough in common. I think it's a hand-in-glove kind of fit
Yeah,
for
but
those
like I
two.
said, the big change will simply be the introduction that I write, asking
Yeah.
people to, to participate in the process.
Mhm.
Does anybody have anything they'd like to add to either of the surveys or modify or change?
I've got nothing to add, but I do know that at all of the meetings that I attended, I think the high school was probably the best attended, and that was due to the fact that I think it was formatted in a little different way than the other ones where it was, I don't know if it was mandatory, but it was, I think they had 40-ish or so at those meetings, but in terms of the others that I went to, I think 5 was the most. And the administrators present indicated to us that they felt like the attendance might be down just due to the fact that they know they're going to get a chance to do these surveys and that they trust the administration and the board to do what's right. So, that being the case, that's all fine.
Yep.
So I would expect a real good response on these, based on the comments that that came out during the listening session?
I had perhaps a proposal I was thinking, but I think it would have been best for the listening sessions, because I think it really is meant for the teachers. And I don't know if you want to, I don't think we should have a different, I think we should have something that's similar. But I had written down for the listening session, and this is just from my experience having taught, I wanted to kind of get my head wrapped around what we were looking for, and I just had, what are some specific things that you feel we could be doing right now in our schools that could improve the educational outcomes of our students? And I just thought, if they listed that, it might help them then to do the survey itself. But I had no problems with that survey. I thought they did a wonderful job in all the schools. I think at intermediate school, I mean, the Waubesa Intermediate School, there had to be, it was nearly 30 people there too,
Mhm.
Craig. So, I mean, it was amazing. Even when there were small groups, I thought they handled it very well. So I guess I'll leave it up to you guys, but I think in a way they should be the same. I don't know unless someone disagrees with that.
The only thing that I got from some of the listening sessions is there's some things right now that are, at least at the middle school and high school, they feel could be addressed while we're waiting on the superintendent. And so this question, are there any thoughts, ideas, or suggestions that you would like to provide to the Board of Education? Maybe we just modify that a little bit to say, is there anything right now that we could focus on to help you improve your
More specific.
school year? Like more specific, because
Yep.
one of the things that got brought up multiple times, which I think we need to talk about later, is mental health. And,
Every meeting.
yeah, and it was, at least in the high school and middle school, it was brought up a lot. And so I think it's something we need to talk about, but I'd like to get a take from the teachers and the staff on anything that we could address right now that maybe isn't even related to the superintendent search and the strategic planning, but would at least give us an idea of some things to talk about later on, since the survey is going out.
Yeah.
I could write in addition, either I could rewrite the last question, or I could add an additional question that captures that for things that could be done now.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can just add on to this question, just make it very, I think that, are there any thoughts, ideas, or suggestions that you would like to provide to the Board of Education is good, but then maybe just another sentence saying, or anything that we could do to,
Well, it's anything we could do to implement now.
yeah,
Of an immediate nature.
yeah.
And yeah, I like that. I like the idea of something you can grab onto, something tangible that you can do while we're kind of waiting for the process to work itself out in terms of those other two major initiatives.
And when you say that, Kate, that makes me disagree with what I just said. In some ways, what you're going to be giving to the staff and to the teachers themselves, since they are in the school and I'd like that the educational outcomes.
Mhm.
You know, what's going to improve or make them better.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
So I take back what I said about my.
So why don't you give me the question you'd like?
I will.
I like the specificity part. The more detail I think you can get in terms of what they would like to see us do, the better.
Yeah.
So what I will do is I will make a modification on the survey going to staff, and I will send it to you right away tomorrow morning and give you some time to take a look at it. And if I don't hear anything back, I'll assume that is good to go, and then I'll send it out probably at noon. So I'll give you till noon to respond, and if you don't, and I'll make whatever changes you suggest,
Yeah.
and then I'll send it out.
Yeah.
Somebody write this down for first.
Everyone agreeable to that?
Yeah, I really like the suggestions, both your suggestions. I have a really small detailed one,
Adding to how long have you worked in the school district, adding less than 1 year. I'm guessing.
I agree with
one
that.
of the options.
I didn't even see that.
Yeah, but that's a minor detail thing.
No,
Less than 1 year.
Yeah, you could certainly do that.
I would.
Yeah, why not?
So how many are just newbies, really?
Yeah.
I think it's a very good statistic to have.
I mean, you could do less than a year, or you could just do 0 to 5 years.
Yeah.
I don't know
Or
which.
0 to 1, you mean?
I was gonna say
Or
0 to 1. It'd be
Okay.
interesting to see how many of this is their first year.
And I know in some of the discussions I had, it was interesting. These were all first year, it was down at Angelo's, the new staff dinner. And talked to them, and there was kind of an interesting blend of new here, but not new to the biz, as opposed to this being their first, teaching job, period. And the perspectives were a little different. The ones that are just moving to McFarland from another district, it didn't quite have, they seemed to almost be a little hardened, maybe, in terms of perspective, and starting here in a new district.
Is that something worth asking then? How long have you been teaching? How many years at McFarland?
Yeah. There were folks that told me in the period of time between whenever we started school and last Friday, it's obvious how different this district is from the one they came from.
Yeah.
And those are the kind of comparisons that we do a lot at these conventions and such. And that's where you find out how unique McFarland really is in terms of the district and the board administration, staff relationships, that kind of thing. We're a very unique district here.
Well, are we going to disaggregate by that? Because what I'm fearful about then is that we're maybe going to privilege either who have or who have not been in the
Yeah.
district? No.
I don't think so,
Then why would we ask it then?
I suppose.
And the other concern might be, once you start adding a lot of demographics, like I've been here 2 years, I'm from another district in Wabisa, it's really easy to identify someone. So I think we have to
Oh,
be
yeah, I guess. I
careful
never-
about how
that's a
many
good
we
point.
add. So
I didn't even think about
what I
that.
recommend is using demographics we're going to use,
Mhm.
and not overdoing it if we're not.
Yeah,
Well,
and it depends what you're really looking for, and since we're looking for specifics about our superintendent and the strategic plan, right?
Yeah, just
Absolutely.
something to consider. I'm just,
No, it's a very
Um,
point well
I
taken.
I never even went there.
No, it's
It
good.
didn't even dawn on me that basically you're telling them everything about the person except their name,
right, oh yeah, that's so-and-so. Yeah, so
Okay.
it's to be careful
Now,
with that.
what my plan is, at least going forward, is we'll put the surveys out, get the information, I'll create summary documents for you for both. Now, with the superintendent search, that takes the forefront. Strategic planning basically waits a little bit. So one of the other things I will send you this week that you need to start thinking about is, when we put forth an application, one of the things that I've always done in the past is have a set of essay questions that the applicants have to write, so that you get a fuller perspective than just the application form. So, and these can help you as you're determining which ones you think are deserving of an interview. So I have a bunch that I've used, I'll send you samples, but you might want to take a look at, because just in my, the time I've been here, I think you're going to want some type of an essay question that deals with equity, because it's one of the strong points, so that you can get some sense of where this individual is. Now, I don't have that question written out yet, but it'll give you a sense of where that person is, depending on how we can write that question. Because these are for you to help as you're reading, saying, oh, that's what this person believes on this. It also gives you a chance to check their writing ability. Now, the writing ability is so-so, because it has happened where somebody else has had somebody write the answers for them. Because obviously we don't see when they're filling out the applications, they're filling it out within their homes, so they don't have to be the ones who write. So one of the things we'll talk about later is whether or not you want them to have a writing exercise, as you're doing it, so you can see actually how they think on their feet and how they do write, but that's for a later discussion. One of the things I will send is some sample essay questions that I've used in the past, and some suggested ones I think, just from my time being here, you might want to consider. But then you should take a look at what other questions, or which questions do you like and which questions would you like to have, because the goal is is sometime by after the November 15th meeting, that you're comfortable with, that we can post this job and start getting people to fill in the applications. So,
So that gives us about 3 weeks.
and, there's lots of work you can do after you've posted it, but one of the things that you do need to decide is, if you want them to do essay questions, what are the essay questions you want them to write on? So I'll send you some of those probably tomorrow or Wednesday. The other thing that's later on in this agenda is the job description, is that we want to have the job description completed before we post it,
Yes.
so that the person can, because we will post then the job description, so anybody else applying will be able to see what the latest job description is.
We're at a point now we can just kind of put that together, aren't we? The
Yep.
job description. We've taken bits and pieces from some other,
Yep, and that's on the agenda later tonight.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
my guess is, at least what I'm visualizing in my head is that we'll talk about it tonight. You'll make some determinations. I'll make those final adjustments. I'll put it on Monday's agenda, and Monday's agenda you could, if you wanted, you could approve it.
When will we have the comments that the various schools have made, the teachers?
Well, I have them all from the meetings. If we put it out tomorrow,
Okay.
what I'll do is, depending on how fast they come in, I'll start, creating one. So I'll give you something next Monday, but I'll tell you this is based on this and however many staff members.
And then how soon do you need those questions that you want to submit? That will be another month,
Probably
3 weeks after that?
by the 15th
Okay,
of November,
okay.
because hopefully by then we'll have it decided which questions you'd like, and then I can create the final posting.
Yeah, it would seem to me, once we look at those comments, we're gonna be able to find some, commonalities that we might wanna,
Yep, and, there's already some commonalities
yeah.
that exist right now.
I'm not sure to make that deadline, we potentially could need an extra meeting, I think. Once we get things put together, just to have a discussion amongst ourselves. How we want to go about breaking this to the public. What questions are we going to use? What's that final process going to look like? 15th is pretty aggressive.
And remember, by the 15th, you don't have to have all the other things, but the 15th, what we'd want is so that the application in which we're going to submit, and my guess is it'll be out there, my guess is, I would say, we can have the discussion, would you like it to close just prior to winter break? So you could then have winter break to review all the comments, or would you like to give them the winter break so that, they could do it and then review it afterwards? Then we will need a special meeting when that comes, to sit down,
Yeah,
take all the
that's true.
applicants, and to sit as a collective group to go through them all and determine,
Yep. I was
answer
thinking we
any
needed
questions
more.
people have. But between the time you post it and between the time that the applications are done, we'll do other things like discussing interview teams, who
Yep.
should be on them,
Yep.
interview questions, interview dates. So they don't all have to be done at the 15th,
Mhm.
but certain things have to be done before you post it.
Yeah.
When,
I'm sorry.
no, go ahead, Greg.
Do you recall if we did an essay question as part of the superintendent
I couldn't remember. Yeah.
search last time?
Yeah.
If you didn't, you should have.
Well, and that could very well be
It
true,
looks
but I
like
don't think we
You
did.
guys did.
Jeff?
We did. There was a writing sample.
Oh, was there? Oh, okay.
It was part of their process that they went through with WASB.
Yep.
Oh, okay, all right, yeah, that makes sense.
So
That makes sense.
I'm curious, when do you create like an evaluation rubric for both the applicants and like the question? Because I could see writing samples are really hard to evaluate and assess. So what are you looking for? You're looking for grammar, you're looking for content, are you looking for particular things? So I'm wondering when we do the process of creating something that we will evaluate each of the applications by.
Yeah. Is it style or substance?
Well, no. I mean, yes, I was giving the writing example for that, but
Yeah.
more, so we talked about this, Dr. Anderson, I think you were in the meeting. If you create an evaluation rubric after the applications come in, it's very much likely that you're gonna be prone to bias. So you'll make the rubric fit the applicants versus the other way around. So the recommendation is to determine what you're looking for before you even see any applicants. Because what people will do will privilege, like, experience over education, because I like this person, or, oh, wait, no, but this person has better education, so let's go with this person. So unless you kind of already figured out what you want, you will twist
Shape the
your.
requirements.
It'll shape their requirements, and it definitely will then fall to perhaps a biased kind of look at who's appropriate for the position.
Since I've never created a rubric to evaluate applicants, I don't have any thing to go on
Yeah.
what that would look like, because it is personal. That's why it takes a lot of time to go through, in the past when I've done it with boards, to go through each of the applicants to say, what are the things you like, because I don't know how you would rate to say, is experience, what is that worth for? It's just something I haven't done, so I don't have anything to tell you, well, here's how it would look like. It's not, I'm not saying we can't do one, I just,
Yeah, no,
I've
no,
never
no.
had, I've just never,
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Done it.
yeah, well, I think, I think it's in the process, so I think it can happen for sure. So
Mhm.
tonight, we're gonna look at the job description and see what they're gonna do, right?
yep,
And we'll think about what the requirements are, so what should they bring? And it's kind of in the mix, in the middle of those two, where you wanna figure out, well, what, if they're gonna do blank, and you want them to have experience doing blank, then you would put that on the rubric. So it's really a very iterative process based on what we're looking for, but it feels like it needs to come after the survey, so we can read the comments. I mean, we have the listening sessions done now.
yep,
The job description, and so we're not late.
no.
But I'm just wondering where we might do that. And like you said, I mean, what, the problem with not considering it is it's just subjective then. It's like, oh, this is a good school district, and you go on things that are not necessarily objective. And so it's just something to counteract that.
Yeah, I just have to think of what it would look like, and
Yeah,
Put
I'm sure
together.
there are samples out there that we can definitely find.
I will certainly put something out to my colleagues and say, do any of you have anything that you've used in the past?
Yeah,
So we could do that,
yeah.
so,
Let us know what you come up with.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
well,
If
right away.
if you
So
see anything out there.
Right. I'll start putting something and then I'll send it out.
All right.
So, I
Thank
mean,
you.
what it means, it truly means that you need to start thinking of, what are the most important qualities for you?
Mhm.
Because like if experience is so that we create, basically a rubric that says, if you've had administrative experience as a superintendent, it's highly valued, you get X. Educational degrees, how important is it that the person have a PhD or an EDD? All right, I'll start working on something. But I'll also send you tomorrow or Wednesday a set of questions, or essay
Mhm.
questions to start looking at, because I do think it's important and it will help you get an idea about the candidates.
That's great.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Sure. I like it.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and it is aggressive, but there's already superintendents postings being
Oh, I'm sure.
posted now.
Yeah, I'm sure that's gonna be an
So-
issue as well. The pool is gonna shrink.
Well, you at least want to be in the beginning, so like, if we can post, by the end of November,
Yeah.
so that you have basically the end of November, so, from the Thanksgiving holiday till the winter break, and then we can discuss before, after winter break. That's gonna be the time when most are open, and then the plan interviews, in January, beginning of February. That's the prime time.
Yeah, it's important,
Okay.
you don't have to be the first kid on the block out there, but it's important to be on the front end in order to have as big a pool as possible to choose from. But I suspect that somewhere in the process, we'll decide what it's gonna take for these
Yep.
people to get interviews and move from there.
We can talk about that, and then the way I'm looking at strategic planning is to put forth this summary document also. And then as, you know, put that aside after we have a summary so you can take a look at it from the listening sessions and the feedback. And then once the superintendent is selected, to bring that person in on the
Mhm.
process from that point on, so that that person has some type of, you know, buy-in, in discussion about the things that are important. So it doesn't, it just pauses it for a second, so
Yep.
we'll have information and pause so that individual can be part of the process.
Mhm. Okay,
Um,
anything else?
Just a-
Christine,
Yeah,
go
just a
ahead.
quick question. So, thank you. I understand you're gonna create a summary document from, like, the survey responses? Is that what I'm
From
hearing?
the survey and listening sessions.
Okay. I'd like to see all the comments.
Oh,
Is
yeah,
that
we will.
possible? Oh, we will?
Yep.
Okay. Can the other thing, as it goes out, can we have an idea of how many people the survey is going to, just generally? Like, for.
Well, I can easily give you that number for staff.
Yeah,
I can pretty much give you that number for parents. The one thing I won't be able to give you that number for is community, because what we'll do is they will go to our blog,
gotcha.
log in,
Mm-hmm.
and, you know.
It
so
could be
they-
anything. Okay, so we'll never talk response rates then, so we just need to be
Yeah, I
careful
mean, I'll
with
be
that.
able,
Yeah,
to
yeah.
well, I'll be able to tell you in response rates that blank number of staff members filled in,
That one's easy.
blank number of parents and guardians filled in, and blank number of community members filled in. But as far as the percent, it would be the,
No worries.
for the last.
Perfect.
Yep,
Yeah.
but
thank
you'll be
you.
able to see, no, you'll see everything. And
Good.
then when
Good.
we actually post these positions, you'll have access so that every individual applies. So Arlen, you're gonna have to, we'll make paper copies and send them to you every time it comes in.
I'll work on it.
But you'll be able to see every day, so you'll be able to look every day to see who's applied and what materials. And there's actually a rating scale on there, so you can put little comments that says, you know, what, if you liked or if you have questions, that only you guys can
Mhm.
see. So it doesn't go out, it just means that the people have access to it.
Mhm.
You can all see what the comments you're making or the questions you
I
have.
like that. I like
And you'll
that.
see each one.
That's
And then at the end of the process, we'll sit down, we'll talk about, you know, each of the candidates, and then you'll make a determination on which ones you think are viable for an interview.
Yep. All right. Let's have a little discussion on our COVID-19 protocols.
Well, right now, on my last meeting, which was Friday, is that I do not believe the mask mandate goes until November 5th. What it sounded like, and they aren't going to tell you, but what it sounded like is that the mask mandate will probably be extended until the vaccine for 5 to 11-year-olds is available. And right now, that looks like it should be sometime in November. So, so I don't believe they're gonna drop the mandate until those become available. Once they become available, I think then there may be some modifications on what their mandates are from Public Health Madison and Dane County. And then it'll be each individual school district decide what you would like to do. At this point, I don't have any recommended changes for you. I know that there's questions on Conrad Elvium, you know, in the lunch, but there are very few options that you have. Eating outside is not an option. Can we extend how much space there are during the lunch period? The only way to do that is to take away gym.
I went to one of my granddaughter's little basketball tournaments. I can't remember I took pictures of it, but walking through their cafeteria was the route to get to the gyms. And what they were doing, they had clear plastic, basically little,
Cubbies?
yeah, they had a divider down the middle of the table lengthwise, and then they had little plastic, so each kid had plastic on 3 sides. I don't know where they got it. I couldn't find anybody to talk to about it, but I did take some pictures of it. Now, it was flimsy. You know, that's the only thing I saw that might potentially be an issue, is it was really, really light stuff, real flexible, kind of bendy, but it did kind of give, I don't know if spit shield is the right word or whatever, between these kids. There was something there, so like I said,
I cleaned it.
I don't know. I tried to find somebody from the school just to kind of give me an idea, but the best I could do is just take pictures of it, so.
I mean,
I don't
one of
know.
the things that I keep going back to is, basically a guiding principles that one of the major goals of this year was to bring people back to in-person learning. We knew that as long as COVID-19 was still here, it wasn't that we were not gonna have cases in school, but that we would try to minimize the number of cases by the decisions that were made. And still, if there was, an outbreak, we'd have to deal with it, but we would continue to bring back to normalize education as much as possible. I think we've done that. Have we had cases? Obviously, every day we report if we have 0, 1, 2, or 3 cases and where they're at. Do we do the close contact tracing? Yes. And do we quarantine when we have to? The answer is yes. But I think we've been able to still maintain face-to-face instruction, with the vast majority of all of our students. I think once the option is available for vaccination, that will give at least another option for parents, and it's an option. Some will decide yes, some will decide no, for whatever the reasons they make their decision. But I think then you'll be able to make some decisions based on, all right, since these options have been available and you've made a choice, what is the recommendation going forward? Hopefully, the vaccinations and the 2, will all be done before winter break, so that maybe some more flexibility can happen after winter break's over.
Well, we had one class over at Conrad that went to virtual for a time. I think that ends tomorrow,
Yes.
maybe?
2 weeks.
And we did have our
Have we
largest,
heard anything about?
well, our largest outbreak was because of flag football. I mean, flag football,
During homecoming?
flag football was one of our,
Our youth,
our youth programs.
yeah.
And we had originally were not gonna close contact trace on that. Public Health Madison, Dane County said, no, they all can be considered close contacts. So then we had basically 50 or 55.
Yeah.
So that was our largest. We did have to quarantine for a period of time when I think we had 5 cases in the classroom, so we went virtual. People understood that because just of the number. So, are we having it? Yes, but I think overall, we're doing a pretty good job of maintaining, in-person, face-to-face instruction and dealing with each incident the best way we can.
Is there an official route? It would be interesting to know how other districts within Dane County and those districts in our conference outside of Dane County are doing in terms of cases, quarantines, step backs, those sorts of things. All I get is anecdotal, where I hear that other districts are having a worse time than we are in terms of the districts that don't have the masking requirements in place. Those schools just outside of Dane County are having a more difficult time than we are. But like I say, it's all anecdotal, it's hearsay. Is there an official way to find those things out?
I don't know the answer if there's an official way. We have the discussions. I will tell you that it varies so much outside of Dane County because some don't do any quarantining.
Right.
And they don't do contact tracing.
Right. Yeah.
So if you don't do contact tracing and you don't do quarantining, I mean, you have no idea what that is.
Yeah.
In their rates, I'm sure they're higher because of the practices. Dane County would probably be a lot easier to get that for how we are with our peers, and we have that, and I think anecdotally, we are probably in better shape than most of our, even our Dane County peers.
Mhm.
But we're not over the hump.
Does not appear that way. Christine?
Two questions. The first one is, so there was a class, it sounds like a classroom at Conrad who was under quarantine, so you went
We
out.
went to virtual, yes.
How long does that go, and what does school look like for them?
Well, I think, Lauren, I'm going to ask you to give me some assistance so I give accurate information. Thank you.
Sure. And Brooke, feel free to jump in, but we had a second grade classroom, where really Greg, Brooke and I had been communicating. We had seen a few more positive cases kind of clustered in one classroom, and we're monitoring it, and ultimately made the decision to close the classroom because there were more positive cases in kind of that environment that we were feeling comfortable with. And so we had determined the quarantine option is 7, 10, or 14 days. At that point, we had determined, given timing of everything, to close it for 10 days so that we weren't subjecting all of the kids to testing. The 7-day mark, they could come back on the 8th day as long as they could receive a negative COVID test. So we had moved the entire class to a 10-day quarantine just based on the timing, the days that we're not in school, and so forth. And at that point, there were fewer kids left in the class due to having to be quarantined as a close contact than actually attending in person. And Brooke, I don't know if you can speak to what virtual instruction looked like for that group.
Yeah, that was the second grade. So we went back to their related arts schedule. They were still receiving related arts via Zoom. So we went back to Zoom for related arts. That was an hour block. And then there were 3 sections, basically 2 before lunchtime and another session after lunchtime. So there were between 3 and 4 hours each day dedicated to live Zooms with the classroom teacher and then also related arts. So we built that around the related arts schedule so they still had that opportunity as well.
So what are we doing to address the kids who are identified as close contacts like multiple times within a month, or have to quarantine for longer periods of time because of their exposures? How are they getting their academics handled?
For anyone in the district, we have our two counselors that we have hired. So anytime a student is in quarantine, regardless of it's their first time or their second time, our school counselors get involved and so can help kind of be the coordination between the classroom teacher and the family, and provide coursework and check in to those students.
Okay.
So this will be a general question, probably more so for Lauren, just because it's coming up repeatedly, the lunchroom. Do you know, either at Conrad or Wabisa, which are the 2 things that I hear the most about, have you found that anyone has gotten it through the lunch experience?
I have not. I will say I have kind of a separate tracking sheet of all of our buildings that tracks the number and the individual who is positive, plus any identified close contacts, so we can watch for in-school transmission. We have not yet found that is a high transmissible time. We've had a couple incidents of school transmission, but again, we're talking snack time, time in the classroom that they could have been identified as a close contact, or lunchtime. So at this point, we have seen 2 incidences of in-school transmission, and had, I think last week, 70 kids at just a K2 in quarantine. But we have not seen out of that group. And Dr. Anderson is correct. That flag football team was a first and second grade team, and so they made up about 50 of those cases, and that was not necessarily in school.
but we have not seen positive cases come from that group needing to quarantine.
And so far, that's been the only classroom that's been like fully pulled into, at any grade level so
Yes.
far? So
Yes.
no
And
other, I'm sorry.
I know that Greg and Corey also are they have a separate monitoring sheet for lunchtime, kids that were close, even if they were outside that 6 feet. Just to, we really want to be extra cautious at lunchtime and really make sure that we are monitoring what those look like. And so, and Corey, I see your face here. I don't know if you wanted to say anything about lunch, but I know they are tracking that at kind of an additional level than what we have to.
I guess the only other additional thing I would say is that we just haven't been able to track any cases that we could say that were a result of the lunchroom. Students that, that have contracted it through the lunch experience.
We have the assigned seating, but at both Conrad LVM and at Wabisa. So it does help us narrow down who those students might be. And it's not like we're finding the student in this seat and then the next student got ill and then the next student got ill. There's not a tracing that you can follow that, proves that would be being contagious in the lunchroom environment. Also, I think it's just important to say too, we've had parents are being so excellent about, if their kids wake up with symptoms, they're not sending them to school, they're having them tested. That's been really helpful. And then classroom teachers also are monitoring very closely pre-lunchtime so that students who are having symptoms that we're recognizing that may have started even at school or started that morning, that we're, getting them to the point where they're not even coming to the lunchroom. We're testing them, or we're sending them home, or we're having them eat separately, just to ensure that as much as possible, we're not taking kids who may be sick or ill in some way into the lunchroom environment. And I know that that's happening all the way through K-5, that teachers and parents are doing an amazing job of the diligence on that.
Well, thank you for answering. I know you're all doing your best, and I appreciate hearing too that parents are, I know the community is really doing our best as well. So thank you.
Now, before we go on, because the next would be budget changes for Jeff, and I'm sure that we short, since we have 11 minutes before our annual meeting, what my suggestion is there's an item that's going to take more discussion, since we do meet next Monday, that we just move from this agenda to next Monday's agenda, so that
We can
no
move
item
the
has to be
policy.
discussed.
We can move the policy stuff for sure.
So I just want to make everybody cognizant that 11 minutes from now our annual
Right.
meeting starts.
Yep. Mr. Mahoney? Budget changes.
Yep, there's an action item on 21-22 budget changes. Those represent the final changes that the public at 7 p.m. at the annual meeting will then be reflecting on. Those are the final changes with property taxes, our final state aid numbers, final project grant revenues, final food service budget revenues, and also incorporated our ESSER 2 grant funds for 2021-2022 into this. And those revenues then create the offsetting expenditures or vice versa, with a small budget change of $1250 between two codes. The additional staffing that we have in place for special education, and then also our ESSER 2 grants. And again, also our final Fund 50 food service expenditures as well. So that is the action item, and it's very routine at this time of year.
Yes.
What are the ESSER 2 or the ESSER 2 lines again?
So ESSER 2 funding.
No, what lines are they on?
So in your revenue, where you see 10R 730 DPI special project grants
Gotcha.
of
Thank you.
186,644 change. Yep. That is the ESSER 2
Perfect.
grant funding. That's the formulary for beginning in 21-22.
Thank you.
And as a note, well, either here or at the annual meeting, those funds are being used for those 2 additional guidance counselors that we hired, and also continues to also support our Zoom licensure as well.
Seems like a good use of those grant funds.
Fits all of the
Criteria?
checks that you need to make with ESSER.
So if nobody has any.
Okay, do we have any questions or comments? If not, I would
I move
accept the
that
motion to,
to accept.
okay. We've got a motion to accept the changes as Jeff talked about. Do I have a second?
I will second that.
Okay, that.
Did you first it, Craig?
No, Arlen.
Harlan.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Okay, that takes us to
So we have all of the Neola ones.
all of the
so
Neola stuff that,
what we could do is if there's any of these that you want to discuss further, we could take those out and approve the ones that don't need any further discussion.
yeah, we could discuss the 2, aren't there 2 individual ones here?
There's the individual ones are coming right after that, and that is the second reading for student representation,
Yes.
and then the first reading of the job description. So for the job description, what we can simply do on that one is that you already, Christine had some modifications and changes to the one that I had sent out. You can send me anything that you would have, and I can put that and send that to you, because I'd put that on next week's agenda anyway. So you've already seen, I think, changes Christine thought would be appropriate.
That's for your job description, correct?
Right.
Yeah.
And we could and just move that to next week.
Mm-hmm.
So take a look, and then we could do, depending on how many changes you have for the Neola ones, they can be short or long, depending on you.
Okay. Do we need a motion to move those to next week's, or do we just,
You just, what we'll do is just say that, we're going to hold those until next week, and then I'll just put them on.
given
there.
our short time frame?
Yep. How
Okay.
about the one you probably have enough time, because I don't think it's gonna take much, is the second reading of the student representation. I think that one, it's been on for a while. I think that there were some modifications that were made. I know that I've talked over those modifications with Jeff Finstead, and
Yep.
there isn't an issue, so I think you could make the motion to accept that with the modified changes, unless you have additional changes you'd like to make.
So we're at action on second reading and adoption of policy 0141.1, student representation at board meetings. Administration recommends approval of second reading and adoption of the attached policy. Do I have a motion?
I move to approve the policy 0141.1, student representation at board meetings as presented and modified.
Thank you, Kate. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Bruce? Any further discussion?
I think the only suggestion that had come up, and I had made the suggestion, was for us to approve it before the year started. And the only reason why I did that was because I don't want it to default to what it was in the past. So I thought by doing that, it would maintain policy, even though Jeff might do it. It maintains in policy what would maybe be changed in practice by somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Well, once you approve a policy, the date in which you approve it, it goes into effect for all practical purposes the next day.
Right, but when Jeff retires or something, you know, I trust that he will do the spirit of the policy, but if we had a different administrator, I wanted to make sure that it,
That the changes got in.
yeah,
Yeah.
right. So I think I'd put in there after approval of the board. So basically, the high school would come to us in the summer, say, this is how we're going to choose our representatives this year.
Yep.
We'd say, cool, let's go with it, move on, and the next summer we do it again.
Yep.
But, that's what I would make it.
Any other
change.
issues? Okay, then, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0.
Wait.
Wait,
Oh, oh.
I'm confused on that as well.
Yeah.
Oh,
So I'm gonna say nay, because I would like that change in the policy.
oh, I thought the change was already there. I'm
No.
sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I read it wrong.
That's okay.
So we have to have a whole nother motion, I think.
Well, we
Or we
have
can-
one on the table,
We have
so
one on the
we have
table.
to either we pass
And that was
it or
to
not.
accept it with changes,
Yeah,
correct?
And I
Mhm.
seconded
With
that.
the changes that are.
The
That are
way they're written in
reflected
here.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I would like to hear again, explain that again, Christine. I'm sorry, I want to try to understand. I don't see any reason why you wouldn't want to implement this even now.
No, it is, that's not what I heard.
Okay, that's what I
Christine
wanted.
Say, is that, what she wants is that some language that would have the high school principal come back at the beginning of every year to say how the representatives are going to be selected.
Correct, right, so,
So you don't want to, in other words, you don't want to begin this until next year?
no.
Okay,
So when I
that-
made the change
Yeah.
to this policy, I had said after board approval.
Yeah,
Annual board approval. So every year, we would just look at it and make sure that the students that we were going to be having working with us as student representatives, that we got it.
Okay.
And once again, it's not about the person or who is the administrator at the high school. It's really about making sure that we can have the spirit of the policy maintained each year. And it might be, and part of why I think it's important is because I've heard some really fantastic ideas, like having it be part of a particular class, or having it be different student groups come each time and present. And so if we get stuck in, this is how we're always going to do it. I just don't want it to fall back to what it's always
Gotcha.
been.
Then what I'd recommend is, since we have 2 minutes left, that you let me just create some wording and send it out, and we do it on next Monday.
It's fine with me.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I apologize. I was confused over
no.
the changes that we were talking about.
Right.
Yeah, that's fine, Dr. Anderson, I
So
think.
just place it on hold until next week. I'll create some language and I'll send it out to everybody. So
Yep.
you can all take a look and modify and change it. So when we come in the next week, it basically says what you'd like it to say.
Perfect. So do we need to approve or deny the motion, though?
No, we've got a motion and a second out there.
Okay.
So I would say we should probably just vote no and come back next week.
Yeah, that'd be fine.
I mean,
Because then I'll come back with
Yeah.
the modified language.
so we need to defeat the proposal.
yep.
That's
All
what I
those in
feel.
favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed? Nay?
Nay.
All right, and I'll bring it back next week.
Thank you.
And I think,
And
and
we
the last
don't-
item didn't need to be
That
acted
doesn't
on.
need to be addressed, so I would look for a motion to adjourn the regular meeting.
I'll make the motion. to adjourn.
Christine?
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Arlen? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes